I'm really proud of all these guys. I am. I mean, it's hard when you lose that way. You know, you feel like you get your heart ripped out. So, but I'm proud of that group, and I'll go anywhere with that group. And sometimes you can only say so much. You got to live it, unfortunately. You got to get your heart ripped out, which we did.
The Detroit Lions may not be going to the Super Bowl, but they just capped a hell of a season. A season unlike they've ever had. The Lions just overcame 30 plus years of losing and got within striking distance of the big game. Under Dan Campbell, this team has improved every single season. That's why you should have hope. And while there are no guarantees the Lions will return, this year was a massive win for the organization, and Dan Campbell gave this team a real identity. If you want the big balls, if you praise the big balls, then you gotta deal with the consequences of also having the big balls. And people have been questioning Dan Campbell since the moment he was hired.
We need resuscitation. This whole kick in the teeth and bite at the knees, we're already dead. We need you to bring us back to life.
Everybody either puts a thumb up or thumb down to say yes, he lives, or kill him.
Right now, the Detroit Lions got the thumbs up.
How Dan Campbell brought the Lions back from the dead. The moment that Dan Campbell started speaking from the podium when he was announced as the Lions head coach, you could tell something interesting was about to transpire.
We're going to kick you in the teeth. All right. And when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off. All right. And we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. All right. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap. And we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down.
He went from giving us one of the more confusing metaphors about kneecaps and cannibalism, aka Dan Campbellism, to showing us real men do cry after the Lions defeated the Buccaneers for their first ever multi-playoff win in the Super Bowl era.
You're built for this. You're built for this, man. And look what you guys did. You went out there, and it's another hot team that we knocked off. Feel how hard it is to win in this league in the playoffs?
Before the Lions made one of the best head coaching hires in their franchise's history, they made one of the worst.
I'm gonna get comfortable here for a second, hang on. Okay, fire away.
In 4 seasons with the Detroit Lions, Jim Caldwell stacked a record of 36-28, getting to the playoffs in 2014 and 2016, while also recording back-to-back winning records following the surprise retirement of star receiver Calvin Johnson. Jim Caldwell was not the flashiest or the most demonstrative coach, but he was as steady as they come and gave Detroit a level of stability they hadn't seen since Barry Sanders was running the football for them. And they threw it all away. Today, we're going balls deep into Dan Campbell bringing the Lions back from the dead. Is that necrophilia? Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you don't, you're going to curse the Lions again. Make sure you check out my coffee, benchwarmerbrew.com. We got the Fuck the Refs blend. I had the Lions in mind when I made this blend, considering you're the most unfairly officiated team in NFL history. Now you can get a delicious dark roast delivered right to your door, benchwarmerbrew.com. It's good. It's my coffee. And that's how you can support this channel. How dead were the Detroit Lions? They were more dead than Simba's dead dad in The Lion King. So dead that after 12 seasons with Matthew Stafford, all it took was 1 season with another team for him to win a Super Bowl and get thrown into the Hall of Fame discussion. So dead that hiring Matt Patricia as their head coach appeared worse than going 0-16, which they were the first team to ever do. So dead that the last time they actually had hope as a fan base, it was in the 90s, and their star player was a running back. You need to understand, no fan base on earth so willingly accepted defeat like Lions fans. And unlike most fans who come to terms with that in, say, November or December, Lions fans accepted that shit in August. okay? That their season was over. Their tortured history is long, but we're starting at the most recent point of pain. The Jim Caldwell firing perplexed many. It's not so much that they wanted to make a move that could get them over the top. They thought they had reached the ceiling of what a 62-year-old head coach could give them. And I understand that it's who they brought in to replace him that really burnt down the house. It's almost humorous how every resurrection starts with a hiring from the least fruitful coaching tree ever. The Belichickian tree, the taking tree. By 2018, we knew that Belichick and his coaching tree was rotten to the core, dead by way of oak wilt, pine beetles, Dutch elm disease, whatever kills a fucking tree. Bill infected his coaches with it before they left the nest. We had plenty of data to back that up. Romeo Crennel, Eric Mangini, Josh McDaniels. Hell, the Lions even had a Belichickian disciple themselves when they brought in Jim Schwartz, who did resurrect their franchise following the 0-16 debacle, but he ultimately only rewarded them with one winning season in 5 years. Matt Patricia was bad, not just as a game planner, but as a dictator. I mean leader.
You know, do me a favor, just kind of sit up and just like have a little respect for the process. Every day you come in and ask me questions and you just kind of like, you know, give me this. But I mean, like, just be a little respectful. I'm asking just to be a little respectful in this whole process, okay?
I also heard he robbed old ladies for fun on the team's off day. He won just 9 games in his first 2 seasons. He feuded with some of his best players like Darius Slay, who he traded away.
He's showing plays of me, getting caught on in practice, which is cool, which is no problem. Help me get better, go about my day. But he added a little more fuel to it. Posted a picture off my Instagram into the team meeting room and told me to stop sucking this man private. So I said, I'm like, what?
And ultimately drove Matthew Stafford out, the best Lions quarterback of the modern era, gone. Josh McDaniels did the same shit in Denver. And as much as every Broncos fan despises him, we're all grateful that things got so bad because of him. We ended up with John Elway as general manager and Peyton Manning as our quarterback and a Super Bowl ring. And I feel the same thing happening in Detroit. From the ashes, Dan Campbell has risen. So when the Lions fired Patricia mid-season in 2020, they were about to head into an offseason where they would have a question mark at the 3 most crucial positions in their organization: head coach, quarterback, and general manager. They had to get the Holy Trinity right this time. First, the quarterback, Sean McVay, has since expressed regret for how the Matthew Stafford trade went down back in 2021. Before the trade was finalized, McVay and Stafford were both vacationing in Cabo, and by the time they both got home, Stafford was a Ram, and Jared Goff was the odd man out. An afterthought, really, discarded by the team as a product of the Sean McVay system that could be swapped out for a new part. The original Jimmy Garoppolo, really. Now, McVay never sat Goff down and told him that they would be exploring a trade, trying to upgrade, or potentially finding him a new home. Goff became the ultimate but quarterback in Los Angeles. The Rams, when Jeff Fisher was still their head coach, had traded up to select him first overall in 2016. First it was, but they could have had Carson Wentz, who was taken 1 pick later and looked like the better quarterback in their first 2 seasons. Then it was, but they could have won a Super Bowl in 2018 if they had a more dynamic playmaker than Jared Goff against the Patriots. The Rams had tentatively signed Goff to a $134 million extension, and it made sense to deal him to the Lions, who really didn't have anyone to spend their own money on at the time.
Well, I remember when we were hammering out the details of the trade. Obviously, Stafford was getting traded to the Rams, but I never forget Les asked me, he was like, do you want Jared in this trade? And I was like, hell yeah. Like, absolutely. Like, it wasn't like, just give me any quarterback. No, I was like, no, I want Jared in this trade.
The final deal looked like this. The Rams got Stafford. The Lions got Goff, 2 firsts and a third. Oh, and they still needed a head coach after spending 11 years in the NFL as a primarily blocking tight end. Avid Metallica fan Dan Campbell ascended to the role of Dolphins interim head coach back in 2015. Campbell went 5-7 after Miami fired Joe Philbin. but brought them some desperately needed energy and confidence, and damn, did he bring it.
To watch the way you guys played and practiced all week, it's inspiring, okay? It makes somebody like me want to fucking bleed for you, okay? I would do anything for you guys. That stuff, it's invaluable, man, the way that you guys have come together. Don't forget why we were able to do what we did today.
One of his linebackers, Chris McCain, said, "I would run through anything for Coach Campbell. A brick wall, a cement wall, anything." Really? Anything? Would you run through a prison naked yelling, "Come get it, boys"? If every player who wanted to run through a brick wall for Dan Campbell actually followed through with it, there would be no more walls, all right? They'd be holding team meetings outside next to the ruins of their old facility. So thank God this is just a metaphor, which Dan Campbell loves. Campbell almost secured the full-time job for himself before the Dolphins ultimately settled on, oh yeah, Adam Gase. Campbell spent 5 seasons under Sean Payton in New Orleans as the assistant head coach and tight ends coach, suffering a couple heartbreaking postseason losses before Detroit came calling. He had history with the Lions, of course. His best season as a receiver came in 2006, catching 4 touchdowns in the Motor City, and Campbell felt like a logical antidote to what Matt Patricia had done in Detroit, which was fucking destroyed it again. All right? If there was any doubt about who Campbell was and what he stood for, he made sure everyone got the picture in his introductory press conference.
And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. All right, and on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap.
It was easy to poke fun at Campbell. In an era where young offensive masterminds like Kyle Shanahan, Sean Pex McVay, and Matty LaFleur had become all of the rage, Campbell's press conference was old school. To some, it was an antiquated way to view football and lead adults.
This press conference was kind of embarrassing. You got a lot of cats in the NFL that come up in there and they hold dudes accountable, and they're about making sure that you go all out. You know what? You give it all you've got. That does not make for a successful. You got to actually know what the hell you're doing.
We're going to bite off their knee. I see what Campbell thinks he's trying to get across. But listen, you see from the introductory press conferences sometimes we're like, uh-oh.
The general take was, this is either the best or worst hiring ever, which is a crazy thing to say after you just got rid of Pencil Dick. Now, it became very easy to make fun of Dan Campbell and say, "I told you so," in the Lions' first year under the True Grit coach.
They tell me you're a man with true grit.
Doesn't matter if you have 1 ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
They weren't winning. So who was this meathead stereotype of a high school football coach who had begun his tenure in Detroit with a record of 0-10-1?
Cause the Lions won a game. Feeling like the champs is about to go to fuck down. Jared Goff had 3 fucking touchdowns.
When you see your players give all that they have and you lose that way, it's tough. You know, you don't want that for them. But we'll be better for it.
Sure, he hadn't won anything yet, but he was building something. And he was slamming triple-digit ounces of coffee while doing it.
Wear a diaper before some of these games.
The thing that's always overshadowed in that opening press conference is Dan Campbell's opening words, the part about him wanting to be in Detroit, wanting to be in the city and with the football team that nobody else really wanted to be a part of.
I wanted this job bad because I felt like I knew this community. I played here. This place has been kicked, it's been battered, it's been bruised.
The Lions' rise to relevance has not been pretty. Birth is not pretty, and neither is rebirth. The Lions' reboot origin story started right there with Campbell's words foreshadowing the grit he was going to instill and lead by. The only thing that took longer than his rebuild was Dan's pause on Hard Knocks.
The 2022 Detroit Lions will.
Don't forget, Lions fans, link below.
The 2022 Detroit Lions will be the team that can and will.
The catalyst for the rebirth was led on the field by Jared Goff, whose record obscured some pretty solid numbers in 2021, despite his top target being a 22-year-old rookie out of USC by the name of amon-ra St. Brown. They were building something in the trenches with the 7th overall pick, Penei Sewell, and 3rd-round defensive tackle Ali McNeil. The start to their season was littered with a couple blowouts and a number of heartbreaking losses, none worse than their 2-point defeat that came via the right foot of Justin Tucker, who just happened to shatter the record for longest field goal in NFL history with the 66-yarder to beat the Lions. The only team that this can happen to would be the Lions. Detroit was still the heartbreak capital. All the blood, sweat, and tears they had expended for their coach and for their teammates was getting them nowhere. People were wondering if Dan Campbell was a better speaker than head coach.
We'll play anywhere. We'll play on grass. We'll play on turf. We'll go to a fucking landfill. Doesn't matter. There's a number of teams, they just barely get to the water. You got to get in the water to compete. A number of teams, that's all they get to. If you can just get a hold of them and you start dragging their ass out to the deep, dark abyss, you can drown them.
How about just win on a regular football field, Dan? Who cares about the water, drowning people or whatever? But by the end of the year, they had started to figure something out, going 3-3, including a pair of NFC North wins against the Vikings and the Packers. There was something to look forward to in 2022. Campbell's coaching staff is made up almost exclusively of former players. So no fucking nerds. And that has worked. There's a trust with current players who know that the men leading them have been in the same battles. And maybe the best move Campbell has made as a head coach was elevating their tight ends coach Ben Johnson to offensive coordinator after one season with Anthony Lynn. Johnson is the one nerd exception Campbell made. Dan knew Johnson from back in the day when they were in Miami, where he had served in a number of offensive roles alongside Campbell and had joined Detroit in 2019 as an offensive quality control under Patricia. Johnson took a stagnant offense, one that had scored just 19 points per game in 2021, and electrified it. In his first year as offensive coordinator, the Lions jumped from 25th in scoring to 5th. Goff had his most prolific, efficient season since 2018 when he led the Rams to the Super Bowl. We got the term the Goffense because of it. Amon-Ra St. Brown had made the leap to a 1,000-yard receiver in year 2. They were deadly at the goal line thanks to Jamaal Williams, who scored a league-high 17 rushing touchdowns in 2022, 14 of them coming from inside the 5-yard line. 17 touchdowns broke Barry Sanders' single-season rushing TD record. Obviously, Jamaal is not Barry, but it was the first time we were talking about Barry and not immediately referencing how he and Calvin Johnson retired way too early because the Lions ruined them.
Every time I get tired or I think I can't go no more, I think of that fucking record. That ain't us.
Again, Jamaal may have not been Barry, but we knew Jamaal was a dog with the Lions.
Don't let these tears fool you. There's all dog around this mug. Because if you go piss like a puppy, stay on the porch.
And unfortunately, we'll never know what school he attended.
First swag Kazakage, leader of the hidden village of the Den.
Dan Campbell and GM Brad Holmes also made the controversial decision to trade their Pro Bowl tight end within the division that season. At the time that they made the trade, they were just 1-6, but after they dealt TJ Hawkinson to the Vikings, they went on an 8-2 run to close out the season. Two weird things were happening. The Lions were indeed 1-6, but everyone could tell they were putting something together, that they were better than their record. Those losses were fun, high-scoring games. Trading away a great player never makes anyone happy, especially to a rival, but it felt like the Lions knew what they were doing. Saving money they'd have to spend to keep TJ and stockpiling draft capital for their testosterone-loaded super GM Brad Holmes to work with. Who may have found an even better tight end in Sam Laporta. The Lions nearly made the playoffs in 2022 after that 1-6 start, but a Week 18 win by the Seahawks left them with nothing to play for on Sunday Night Football against the rival Packers. Or so we thought.
Yeah, we don't want them to go, so that's our motivation.
The Lions may not have had the playoffs on the line, but Green Bay did, and Detroit not only spoiled their season, but ended Aaron Rodgers' career as a Packer with an unceremonious interception. Although that probably hurt the Lions more in the long run, considering how good Jordan Love looks. But whatever. It wasn't just a message to the Packers. It was an announcement that the Lions were ready to take the next step in 2023. None of this would be possible if they hadn't nailed their draft. I already mentioned that they hit on Sewell and St. Brown in 2021, but in 2022, they got pretty lucky that the Jaguars picked Trayvon Walker and left Michigan defensive end Aiden Hutchinson in their laps with the number 2 overall pick. 10 picks later, they finally got their first Rams first rounder, and they came away with Jameson Williams. In hindsight, they probably could have done better and taken Jordan Davis or Kyle Hamilton, the next 2 guys off the board, but the jury is still certainly out there. Their 2022 third rounder was Kirby Joseph, a safety who's picked off 4 passes in each of his first 2 seasons, and their 6th round pick, James Houston, just so happened to notch 8 sacks in his rookie season before getting hurt in 2023. Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, and Brian Branch, those were their first 4 picks for Detroit this last draft, 2023. Those first couple of picks were highly criticized. Never take a running back or an off-ball linebacker that high, they said. Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes didn't give a fuck. They took their guy, the best players on their board, and it worked wonders. Gibbs, Campbell, and Laporta were all named to the Pro Football Writers Association All-Rookie Team.
Got a lot of really good players, obviously, but maybe not.
Oh, thank you.
What's that?
I said thank you.
You're welcome. Maybe not viewed, though, as the superstars like maybe the 49ers have or others.
All right, never mind.
Oh, and Branch? He just had 50 solo tackles, 3 picks, a forced fumble, and a crucial touchdown that helped them upset the Chiefs in Arrowhead back in Week 1, despite the fact that he has no idea how a mouth guard works. Now, I also think Campbell and Holmes do a great job at finding guys who fit their mentality and their team culture. Brad Holmes, by the way, has been scouting in the NFL since 2003. He was the director of college scouting for the Rams since 2013. We forget to credit him for being part of the Goff draft pick and hell, the 5th round selection of Aaron Donald while he was with the Rams. He's the reason Lions fans should be confident in all of their drafts moving forward. With the help of that outstanding crop of rookies, the Lions won 8 of their first games in 2023. And again, they started it off by beating the defending world champion Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead.
This has an asterisk because of no Chris Jones and no Travis Kelce.
The Lions hit a little bit of a rough patch early in the season, but closed out the year with 3 wins in the last month. The lone loss coming in Dallas. And I think you know how I feel about that game. Fuck those refs.
And everybody either puts a thumb up or thumb down, come out with a mallet and then smash his head. So he was either alive, now he's dead, or he was dead, he was really dead.
And even though they did lose in Dallas, that whole game in general was a testament to Dan Campbell's coaching philosophy in Detroit. One I criticized, okay? He takes chances. He rolls the dice on 4th down, goes for 2, 7 times in a row if that's what it takes, and he fakes punts. For a guy who was tabbed so early as a throwback football coach, he's surprisingly forward-thinking when it comes to in-game decisions. I'm not sure if he actually looks at the analytics or he just goes with his gut, but the analytics do back up the aggression. And more than anything, it shows a trust in his players and his lifelong sponsorship with diapers.
Wear a diaper.
Jared Goff said back in November that we want to make him right. It gives us a little more motivation to make things work. He trusts us. Maybe the odds are stacked against us. And he's saying, no, they are not. The odds have always been stacked against the Lions, but with Dan Campbell, they were no longer sitting back and letting it happen to them. Well, except for this guy, of course.
This stuff is real good for you, and no matter...
It may not always work, but they put the fate of the game into their own hands. The trust and the aggression is paid off. The Lions clinch not only the division, but they guaranteed at least one home playoff game in Detroit for the first time since 1991 when they routed the Cowboys and advanced to the NFC title game. This time, in a beautiful twist of fate, they were facing the LA Rams, the team that helped them kick off the rebuild, and the franchise QB they had relinquished to start over with a clean slate. Lions fans cheered for Stafford when he won the Super Bowl in 2021, and the Lions were bottom feeders. But this time, they greeted him with a chorus of boos. They battered him, made him play from behind, and sealed their first playoff victory in 32 years. Jared Goff, who was deemed expendable by the Rams, made them pay for it. Hell, when Goff came to the Lions, everybody assumed he was just a bridge QB. Now he's their guy. All the backdoor negotiations in Cabo brought the Rams a Super Bowl, but it also spelled their demise in the playoffs 2 years later. A week later against Tampa Bay, they had one more game in Detroit. And they did it again. Derek Barnes, who was the second to last player they selected in Dan Campbell's first draft, clinched the win late in the fourth quarter with the first interception of his 3-year career.
I struggled my rookie year coming in, and those guys kept believing in me. And I just knew, like, this is a group of guys I want to be around. This is a coaching staff I would lay it all out on the line for. Dan, Brad is amazing, AG, Shep, all those guys in the facility.
It's somewhat rare when a head coach actually changes the entire identity of an NFL team, when he becomes the face of the franchise. Typically, it's a QB, or more likely a QB head coach combo. What Dan Campbell has done to overhaul the Detroit Lions, one of the most losing teams over the last 3 decades, is nearly unprecedented.
I don't regret those decisions, and that's hard. It's hard because, we didn't come through. It wasn't able to work out, but I don't. And I understand the scrutiny I'll get. That's part of the gig, man.
And even though the Lions just lost the championship game, the hope that this team can get better and build upon this experience isn't just wishful thinking by a delusional fan base and organization. This is real. The Lions are a real football team, and they're going to be competitive for a long time. And they're probably going to be better next year.
It's going to be twice as hard to get back to this point next year than it was this year. You're not hiding from anybody anymore. Everybody's going to want a piece of you, and which is fine.
Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Balls deep into the Detroit Lions and Dan Campbell and their resurrection. Please subscribe here if you haven't clicked away already. And go Lions. Go Lions.